Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We'll be looking at 1 Peter chapter 1, starting at verse 6. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16, Thy words were found, and I did eat them. And thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, in verses 6 through 9, we're going to be seeing the purpose of Christian suffering. The purpose of Christian suffering. And he says here in verse 6, Wherein ye greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, ye are in heaviness through manifold temptations. Now, he says here, wherein ye greatly rejoice. And this Greek word for wherein is referring back to a word in verse 5. In verse 5, Peter writes, Who are kept by the power of God through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. Now, and then he says in verse 6, Wherein ye greatly rejoice. And this Greek word for wherein is referring back to the word time in verse 5. And the reason why it's referring to the word time in verse 5 is because both Greek words, the word for wherein and the word for time, are neuter in gender. It's not referring back to the word salvation in verse 5 because salvation is feminine in gender. But he's referring back to the word time. Now, these persecuted and suffering believing Jews who had to leave their homes and relocate to another land are greatly rejoicing in a time when they can go to their heavenly home with their heavenly Father in a new heavenly kingdom with a new king. And that's Jesus Christ is our new king. And we don't have to worry about moving anymore or any suffering. So this is what Peter is saying to them, wherein ye greatly rejoice. What was it that they were greatly rejoicing in? It was the time when they would be able to leave this earth and go to their new inheritance, their new home. And he says, ye greatly rejoice. The Greek word here is agaliao, and it means to exalt, to express extreme joy. And Peter uses this word two more times in this same letter. He uses it in chapter 1, verse 8, and he also uses it in chapter 4, verse 13. And these believing Jews were expressing tremendous joy in the knowledge that there is coming a day when they will have a permanent home with no threat of persecution or suffering. And it's the same for us today, whether we're Jew or Gentile. We look forward to the day when we can leave this world and go to the new heaven and the new earth where there's no suffering, where there's no persecution. Okay? And I wanted to take a moment and have us think about this. I wanted to ask you a question, but I don't want you to have any thoughts of condemnation or guilt or shame or anything like that. When I ask this question, I'm not trying to produce some kind of guilt or shame or any negativity within you, but how often do you think about heaven? Is heaven a real place to you, or do you think of it as just a fairy tale? Do you believe the Bible when it says that you are a citizen of heaven and that you belong to that new world. And it's a thing where I know I've been doing it for the last 2 years or so. As time goes on in my life, I think to myself more about what heaven is like. I meditate upon it a little bit and I take time to think of heaven. Why? Because heaven is a real place. And I will go there one day. And if you're saved, you will go there also. And it is a real place. It's not a figment of our imagination, no. But heaven is real. And, you know, if I gave to you, let's say I gave to you a ticket, and this ticket was for you to go anywhere in this world that you would imagine as your dream vacation, right? 2-week, maybe a 3-week vacation to anywhere, all expenses paid. And you could go there and enjoy yourself for the next 2 or 3 weeks, right? Where would you go? Well, you would be imagining in your mind until the day you got on that plane to go to that vacation, or maybe got in a boat or drove there, however. Until that day, you would be thinking every single day about that vacation. You would be imagining the smells, right? Imagining the taste of the food, imagining what the sky would be like and the other views and things that you would see there and the sounds and all these things, right? It would be in your imagination and you would be thinking about it every single day, right? Your boss would have to yell at you and wake you up because he would be looking at you and you would be looking up towards the ceiling, just like in this imaginary land, right? Thinking about this vacation. Well, heaven is real, and heaven is way more exciting, way more valuable than any 2 or 3 week vacation that I could send you on. It has much more glory, and there is much more reality to heaven than there is here, anything here on earth. Why? I've said it before a number of times. I'll say it again. Heaven and God, where God exists, is more real than this existence. Heaven and the place where God exists is more real than this present existence here on earth. You may say, how can that be? Well, it is because this existence came from that existence. Okay? This existence, everything you hear and see and smell, this whole existence came from that existence. So in reality, that existence is more real than this existence. All right? In this world, with all of its temptations and enticements and distractions, it can be a struggle even for a Christian to always keep the fact that they are citizens of another world in front of them. And that's true. With all the things that we go through here on this earth, it can be a struggle for a Christian to take time to think about going to heaven, to think about what heaven is like. And it's sad to say, I'm sad to tell you that many Christians do not take time to think about heaven. They would rather, they are more involved. They would rather take time to think about their dream vacation than about the ultimate vacation, the ultimate existence of heaven. Okay? Instead of getting all bent out of shape over money, over your job, over your credit score, only over family issues, over corruption here and heartache and deception there. We need to learn to practice daily to rejoice that you belong to another kingdom, that you have another home waiting for you, where there is no more sin, no more sickness, no more corruption, and that you will be there in a few years. You may say, Pastor Mark, I'm 17 years old and I just got saved. I'm 18, 19 years old and I just came to the Lord. I've got my whole life ahead of me. Yes, you do. You do have your whole life ahead of you. But I'm telling you, as someone who's 59 years old, and I look back to when I was 18, I can tell you that the time is short. That 40-year difference in time from when I was 19 years old to when I'm 59 now, it wasn't long. I can still remember things I did when I was 15, 16, 18 years old, when I was 12 and 13 years old, working on a farm. Yes, that's right, driving a tractor. I was at 12 years old. I was driving a tractor. I used to drive the truck. We had an old Ford and an old Chevy. We had a Ford and a Chevy, and we had 3 trucks. I think two Dodge. We had a Dodge truck, a Dodge truck, a Ford truck, and a Chevy truck. They were all flatbeds, and we stacked hay on them. Somebody had to drive the truck, and the other guys had to throw the bales of hay on the truck, and we stacked them up, and then we had to take them to the barn. And I can remember I was 12, 13, 14 years old, and I was driving the standard truck up and down the road. That's right, don't tell anybody. Driving up and down the road. Of course, I didn't have a license. You don't get licenses when you're 12 and 13 years old. But we had to drive the trucks to the barn, back it up on the barn, and drive. Oh, I remember all that. And that was almost 50 years ago. I'm telling you, you may be a young Christian, but time goes by. It goes by just like that. You'll think to yourself, wow, 40 years from now, that's so far, I don't even want to think about it. But I'm telling you, when you're 40 years later, when you look back, you'll say, where did the time go? It's like it was like a couple days ago that this happened. You can remember it so clear. And yet it's almost like the time meant nothing. It was so quick. And now you're looking at the end of your life, and you've got a few more years to go. And heaven is in front of you. Do you think about it? Do you take time to meditate upon it? The glories of heaven, no sin, no sickness, no disease, no lying, no corruption, no nothing there. Just perfect, pure love, filled with tremendous excitement, tremendous joy in heaven, tremendous pleasure, all of the sensations of your heart, the pleasure and the joy and the hope, everything is fulfilled in heaven. Do you take time to think about the trees in heaven? About the river that flows from the throne of God to heaven? About the mansions, what your mansion will look like? What your brothers and sisters or your husbands or your wives or your grandparents' mansion will look like? Nobody knows. But it's God has given us a tremendous gift, and it's a gift. It's the gift of imagination. And God has given us little tidbits in His Word about what heaven is like. And He's given us little things, little thoughts to think about that are imaginations, that a gift from God that He's given to us. We can our imagination can just revel in the fact of what heaven is like. We can think all day of the beauty and the colors and the things that will be there. I can't wait to see the throne of God. I can't wait to see the four beasts around the throne of God. Can you? I can't. It's going to be beautiful. I can't wait to see streets of gold, right? And I can't wait to see the new Jerusalem where each gate, each entrance is made out of one single pearl. How does that happen? I don't know. I can imagine it, but I can't wait to see it. And I think too many times Christians just don't take time to think about heaven. It's where you're going. It's your home. It's like that dream vacation, but it's so much more than that. I mean, your dream vacation is nothing compared to what heaven is like. I mean, heaven is the ultimate, unimaginable, ultimate vacation. But it's not a vacation because you don't return from it. When you go, you're there. You're there. It's your inheritance. And God is keeping it for you. And God is keeping you for it. And God loves us tremendously. Wherein he says, Peter says to these suffering Jews that are under persecution, he says to them, wherein ye greatly rejoice. And what you're rejoicing in is in the time when you and I will leave this earth, will leave this body behind, and will go to that inheritance. All right? Until next lesson, between now and the next lesson, take some time. Think about heaven. Read the last two chapters of the book of Revelation. Read what Jesus said about heaven. And you take time. You let your imagination go. And think about the things of God, the wonders of God in heaven. All right? Until then, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.